You want to learn English? The best way to learn English is to listen to it often and practice speaking it as often as possible. This video will help you improve your English speaking skills and your English listening skills. If you do not understand what the other person is saying, then you will not know how to respond. Just listen. Enjoy.
Chapter 4 of 25-cent dinners for families of 6. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Betty B. 25-cent dinners for families of 6 by Juliet Corson. Chapter 4. Bread, macaroni, and rice. Homemade bread is healthier, satisfies hunger better, and is cheaper than baker's bread. Make bread yourself if you possibly can. Use middlings if you can possibly get them. They contain the best elements of wheat. Household flour has similar qualities, but is sometimes made from inferior kinds of wheat. Both are darker and cheaper than fine white flour, and bread made from them takes longer to rise than that made from fine flour. Baker's bread is generally made from poor flour mixed with a little of the best whey, respective sort, or with a little alum, which added to the wheat grown in wet season keeps the bread from being pasty and poor in taste. The prices of baker's bread upon the streets in the eastern and western parts of the city are as follows. Ordinary white bread, 5-cent loaf weighs 3/4 pound. 6-cent loaf weighs 14 ounces. 8-cent loaf weighs 1 pound and 10 ounces. Black bread, 2 8-cent loaves weigh, respectively, 1 pound 8 and 1 pound 10 ounces. Fine French bread, 8-cent loaf weighs 3/4 pound. In the French Quarter, a 6-cent loaf weighs 1 pound. We advise the purchase of new flour in preference to old, because, unless flour is cooled and dried before it is packed, the combined action of heat and dampness destroys its gluten and turns it sour. Gluten is the nutritive part of the flour that is more bread of better water and yield more bread. If you do not have a good oven, your bread can be baked at the baker's for about 1 cent a loaf. When bread is made too light, it is tasteless and lacks nourishment because the decay caused in the elements of the flour used to make it by the great quantity of yeast employed destroys the most nutritious parts of it. A pint of milk in a batch of 4 loaves of bread gives you 1 pound more bread of better quality and helps to make it moist. Scalded skim milk will go as far as fresh whole milk, and you can use the cream for some other dish. 1 pound of pea meal or ground split peas added to every 14 pounds of flour used for bread increases its nourishment and helps to satisfy hunger. Keep your bread in a covered earthen jar when it is too stale to eat, or make it into bread broth. Dry it in a cool oven or the bread each day. Roll it with a rolling pin, sift it through a sieve, and save the finest crumbs to roll fish or chops in for frying, and the largest for puddings. If a whole loaf is stale, put it into a tight tin can and either steam it or put it into a moderately warm oven for half an hour. It will then be as good as fresh bread to the taste and a great deal more healthy. A good allowance of bread each day is as follows. For a man, 2 pounds, costing 6 cents. For boys and women, 1 pound and a half, costing 5 cents. For children, 1 pound each, costing 3 cents. Homemade bread. Put 7 pounds of flour into a deep pan and make a hollow in the center. Into this put 1 quart of lukewarm water, 1 tablespoonful of salt, 1 teaspoonful of sugar, and half a gill of yeast. Have ready 3 pints more of warm water and use as much of it as then divide it to make a rather soft dough, mixing and kneading it well with both hands. When it is smooth and shining, strew a little flour upon it. Lay a large towel over it folded and set it in a warm place by the fire for 4 or 5 hours to rise. Then knead it again for 15 minutes, cover it with the towel, and set it to rise once more. Then divide it into 2 or 4 loaves and bake it in a quick oven. This quantity of flour will make 8 pounds of bread and will require 1 hour's baking to 2 pounds of dough. It will cost about 30 cents and will last about 2 days and a half for a family of 6. In cold weather, the dough should be mixed in a warm room and not allowed to cool while rising. If it does not rise well, set the pan containing it over a large vessel of boiling water. It is best to mix the bread at night and let it rise till morning in a warm and evaporated. Rice bread. Simmer 1 pound of rice in 3 quarts of water until the rice is soft and the water evaporated or absorbed. Let it cool until it is only lukewarm. Mix into it nearly 4 pounds of flour, 2 teaspoonfuls of salt, and 4 tablespoonfuls of yeast. Knead it until it is smooth and shining. Let it rise before the fire, make it up into loaves with a little flour reserved from the 4 pounds, and bake it thoroughly. It will cost about 25 cents and make more than 8 pounds of excellent bread. Potato bread. Take good, mealy, boiled potatoes in the proportion of 1/3 of the quantity of flour you propose to use. Pass them through a coarse sieve into the flour, using a wooden spoon and adding enough cold water to enable you to pass them through readily. Use the proper quantity of yeast, salt, and water, and make up the bread in the usual. It will cost about 24 cents if you use the above quantities and give you 8 pounds or more of good bread. Pulled bread. Take from the oven an ordinary loaf of bread when it is about half baked, and with the fingers, while it is yet hot, pull it apart in egg-sized pieces of irregular shape. Throw them upon tins and bake them in a slow oven to a rich brown color. This bread is excellent to eat with cheese or wine. An ordinary sized loaf costing about 3 cents makes a large panful. Bread made with baking powder. Where bread is made with baking powder, the following rules should be closely observed. If any shortening be used, it should be rubbed into the flour before it is wet. Cold water or sweet milk should always be used to wet it, and the dough should be kneaded immediately, and only long enough to thoroughly mix it and form it in the desired shape. It should then be placed into a little of the oven and baked quickly. Otherwise, the carbonic acid gas will escape before the expanded cells are fixed in the bread, and thus the lightness of the loaf will be impaired. Breakfast rolls. Mix well by sifting together half a pound of flour. Cost 2 cents. A heaping teaspoonful of baking powder, a level teaspoonful of salt, and a heaping teaspoonful of sugar. Cost 1 cent. Rub into a little of the above 1 ounce of lard. Cost 1 cent. Mix it with the rest of the flour and quickly wet it up with enough cold milk to enable you to roll it out about ½ inch thick. Cost 2 cents. Cut out the dough with a tin shape or with a sharp knife in the form of diamonds. Lightly wet the top with water and double them half over. Put them upon a tin, buttered and warmed, and bake them in a hot oven. This receipt will cost about 6 cents and will dish among sized rolls. Tea biscuit. Mix as above using the same proportions and cutting out with a biscuit cutter. When they are baked, wash them over with cold milk and return them to the oven for a moment to dry. The cost is the same. Macaroni. This is a paste made from the purest wheat flour and water. It is generally known as a rather luxurious dish among the wealthy, but it should become one of the chief foods of the people, for it contains more gluten, or the nutritious portion of wheat, than bread. It is one of the most wholesome and economical of foods, and can be varied so as to give a succession of palatable dishes at a very small cost. The imported macaroni can be bought at Italian stores for about 15 cents a pound, and that quantity when boiled yields nearly 4 times its bulk, if it has been manufactured for any length of time. Good macaroni is yellow or the flavor. White sorts are always poor. It should never be soaked or washed before boiling or put into cold or lukewarm water. Wipe it carefully, break it in whatever lengths you want it, and put it into boiling water, to every quart of which half a tablespoonful of salt is added. You can boil an onion with it if you like the flavor. As soon as it is tender enough to yield easily when pressed between the fingers, drain it in a colander, saving its liquor for the next day's broth. and lay it in cold water until you want to use it. When more macaroni has been boiled than is used, it can be kept perfectly good by laying it in fresh water, which must be changed every day. After boiling the macaroni as above, you can use it according to any of the following directions. Half a pound of uncooked macaroni will make a large dishful. Macaroni farmer style. Boil half a pound of macaroni as above, and while you are draining, when both are done, butter, stir together over the fire 1 ounce each of butter and flour, and as soon as they bubble, gradually pour into the sauce they make a pint of boiling water, beating it with a fork or egg whip until it is smooth. Season it with a level teaspoonful of salt and a level saltspoonful of pepper, and put the macaroni in it to heat. Then cut an onion in small shreds and brown it over the fire in a very little fat. When both are done, dish the macaroni and pour the onion out of the frying pan upon it. It is excellent, and 10 cents will cover the cost of all of it. Macaroni with broth. Put half a pound of macaroni, boiled as above and washed in cold water, over the fire with any kind of broth, or 1 pint of cold gravy and water. Season it to taste with pepper and salt, and let it heat slowly for an hour, or less if you are in a hurry. Then lay it on a flat dish, strew have ready some always have on hand if you save all the bits I speak of in the article on bread. Then set the dish in the oven or in front of the fire to brown. It will cost less than 10 cents and be delicious and very hearty. Macaroni with white sauce. Warm half a pound of macaroni, boiled and washed in cold water, as above, in the following sauce, and use it as soon as it is hot. Stir together over the fire 1 ounce each of butter and flour, pouring in 1 pint of boiling water and milk. As soon as the butter and flour are mixed, season it with the salt and pepper to taste and put the macaroni into it. This dish costs less than 10 cents and is very good and wholesome. Macaroni with cheese. Boil half a pound of macaroni as above. Put into a pudding dish in layers with 1/4 pound of cheese, cost 4 cents. Grated and mixed between the layers. Season it with pound of imported. Put a very little butter and some breadcrumbs over it and brown it in the oven. It will make just as hearty and strengthening a meal as meat and will cost about 12 cents. Macaroni Milanese style. Have ready some sauce made according to the receipt for tomato sauce given below, or use some fresh tomatoes passed through a sieve with a wooden spoon, and highly seasoned, and 2 ounces of grated cheese. Put half a pound of imported Italian macaroni, cost 8 cents, in 3 quarts of boiling water, with 2 tablespoonfuls of salt, 1 saltspoonful of pepper, and a teaspoonful of butter, cost 1 cent. Boil rapidly for about 20 minutes, then drain it in a colander. Run plenty of cold water from the faucet through it and lay it in a pan of cold water until you are ready to use it. Put into a saucepan 1 gill of tomato sauce, cost 2 cents, sauce, butter, cost 2 cents, and 1 gill of any meat gravy free from fat, and stir until they are smoothly blended. Put a ½ layer of macaroni on the bottom of a dish, moisten it with 4 tablespoonfuls of the sauce, sprinkle over it ½ ounce of the grated cheese. Make 3 other layers like this, using all the macaroni, cheese, and sauce, and brown the macaroni in a hot oven for about 5 minutes. Serve it hot. It will cost about 13 cents. Macaroni with tomato sauce. Boil half a pound of macaroni as already directed, and lay it in cold water. Make a tomato sauce as follows, and dress the macaroni with it, using only enough to moisten it, and sprinkling the top with an ounce of grated cheese. Cost 1 cent. Serve it hot. Tomato sauce. Boil together for 1 hour 1/4 can of tomatoes, or 6 large fresh ones. Cost 2 cents. Broth of any kind, 1 sprig of thyme, 1 sprig of parsley, 3 whole cloves, 3 peppercorns, and ½ ounce of onion sliced. Cost 2 cents. Rub them through a sieve with a wooden spoon and set the sauce to keep hot. Mix together over the fire 1 ounce of butter and ½ ounce of flour, cost 2 cents, and when smooth incorporate with the tomato sauce. The cost of the tomato sauce will be about 10 cents, and of the entire dish about 18 cents. If you do not wish to use all the tomato sauce and you do not need to, save it to use with fried chops of any kind. Rice. Rice is largely composed of starch, and for that reason is less nutritious than flour, oatmeal, Indian meal, or macaroni, but it is a wholesome and economical food when used with a little meat broth, drippings, or molasses. It is a very safe food for children, especially if used with a little molasses. Stir this into the following is an excellent supper dish. Rice panada. Boil half a pound of rice, which costs 5 cents, quarter of a pound of suet at 2 cents, with 1 tablespoonful of salt and 1 of sugar, cost 1 cent. Fast in boiling water for 15 minutes. Meantime, mix half a pound of flour, cost 2 cents, gradually with 1 quart of water and 1 gill of molasses, cost 2 cents. Stir this into the boiling rice and boil it for about 5 minutes. This makes a nice supper of over 5 pounds of good, nutritious food for 12 cents. Boiled rice. Another good dish of rice for supper can be made as follows. Wash half a pound of rice, cost 5 cents. Throw it into 1 quart of boiling water containing 2 teaspoonfuls of salt and boil it fast 10 minutes. Drain it in a colander, saving the water to use with broth next day. Meantime, just grease style. For drippings, put the rice back in it, cover it, and set it on a brick on the top of the stove or in a cool oven and let it stand 10 minutes to swell. Be careful not to burn it. The addition of a very little butter, sugar, molasses, nutmeg, lemon juice, or salt and pepper will give it different flavors so that you can vary the taste and have it often without getting tired of it, and it need never cost you over 7 cents. Rice, Milanese style. Fry 1 ounce of butter, cost 2 cents, light brown. Put into it half a pound of rice, cost 5 cents, well picked over but not washed, and 1 ounce of onion chopped fine. Stir and brown for about 5 minutes, then add a pint of gravy from meat, season with a level teaspoonful of salt, quarter that quantity of pepper, and as much cayenne as you can take on the point of a very small penknife blade. The onion and seasoning will cost less. This makes a palatable. Stew gently for 15 minutes, stirring occasionally to prevent burning, and serve as soon as the rice is tender. This makes a palatable dish for about 10 cents. Rice, Japanese style. Put half a pound of well-washed rice into a double kettle with 1 pint of milk or water, 1 heaping teaspoonful of salt, and quarter of a medium-sized nutmeg grated. Boil it until tender, about 40 minutes. If it seems very dry, add a little more liquid, taking care not to have it sloppy when it is cooked. When milk is used, it may be served with milk and sugar as a breakfast or tea dish. When water takes the place of milk, the addition of 1 ounce of butter and half a saltspoonful of pepper makes a nice dinner dish of it. End of Chapter 4.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to Learn with Cartoon channel. Publish a video to your friends.